This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. It's a Theory Thursday, and I love music theory, don't you? Now, in this lesson, we're going to look at how the different types of chords that we've been looking at over the last few Theory Thursday lessons fit into a given key, how they can work for the different functioning chords that we have in a key. So we've looked at these things separately, now we're going to put them together. Early on with these Theory Thursday lessons, we looked at our basic chords, our C, our F, our G, how those are based on triads or A minor, major and minor triads. And then we've looked at how we can have lots of different three-note types of chords that are foundational to the different types of chords that we play. From there, we looked at how we can stack other colors on top, whether it be the 6th or the 7th or the 9th, the 11th, the 13th, alterations of those, altered fifths. We end up with all these different types of chords. Now we're going back to our chord progression and looking at how these different types of chords can fit into the chord progression. So if you haven't seen the lessons that have preceded this one, you may want to check them out. Those lessons that are on the different types of chords, and also those lessons that go through creating chord progressions based on the chords that naturally fall in a key and how all that works. Up here on the board, in a major key, we're doing the major key in this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll look at the minor key. But we've got the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 7. Of course, the roots of those come off the steps of the scale that matches the key. In this case, I'm going to exemplify things with C major. So C major has no sharps or flats, which is nice on a Thursday. Do we really want to think through sharps and flats? So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Those are the notes that are in a C major scale. So going through then, our 1 chord is a C chord, our 2 chord is D minor, and then our 3 chord is E minor, our 4 chord is F, our 5 chord is G, our 6 chord is A minor, and our 7 chord would be B diminished. And then we're back there. And so now looking at the different types of colors that we've been learning about and the different types of chords, let's look at the ones that sort of naturally fall into this key. This is especially great for jazz, some classical music, and then we bring these colors into pop, rock, folk, and various arrangements of various styles. So they're important everywhere. In the jazz style, we're going to see these types of chords, the 6th chords, the 7th chords, these upper extensions. These are going to be the most primary sounds that we go to most of the time, and the triad based chords, just that regular old C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished as a triad. Those ones don't show up near as often in that style and show up way more often in our folk, pop, and so on. So let's take a look here at the 1 chord. The 1 chord's a major chord. If we looked at the different types of colors that we could throw on this, it could be a 1-6. So it could be a 1-6-9. We worked on some of that. It could be a major 7th. It could be a major 9th. Could have a major 7 with a sharp 11. Could also have a 9th in it if we wanted to. We know we can stack these back. Or that major 13. All those types of sounds fall naturally with the 1 chord. All those types of sounds also fall naturally with the 4 chord. So we would have that with our F. We could have an F6, an F6-9. We could have an F major 7, an F major 9, an F major 7 sharp 11. I got the 9th in there too. We could have that F major 7 with the 13th in there. All of those sounds fall naturally with the 1 chord and the 4 chord, the major 7th ones stacking higher, and the 6 or 6-9. That's naturally where they go, on the 1 chord and the 4 chord. Our 2 chord, our 3 chord, and our 6 chord are minor chords. And naturally, these ones, the colors that we use most often with these are the minor 7th. So the minor 7th chords, meaning we're throwing on that flatted 7th. It's got a parenthesis around it because the chord symbol is going to have that minor. And when we throw on a flatted 7th or a minor 7th, the chord symbol does not have a minus sign in front of it. So it's there to remind us that they're minor. But with these ones, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 6 chord, these ones are commonly done as minor 7ths. We could have a minor 6 sound. We could, but it's not very commonly done. So the minor 6, minor 6-9 could be used here, but it's not commonly done. Minor 6, minor 6/9, though, are more commonly heard as the tonic in a minor key, which we'll talk about in the next lesson. But with that, so we have a D minor as our normal chord. So I can have a D minor 7 as my 2 chord. I could have a D minor 9. I could have a D minor 11. I could have a D minor 13. I guess I could do that here too. So those are common sounds that we would hear for that 2. Same thing for the 3, only it would be E minor. So instead of E minor, we'd have E minor 7, we could have E minor 9, we could have E minor 11, we could have E minor 13. And the same thing for the 6th chord, which is A minor in this case. So we could have the A minor chord, but we have A minor 7, A minor 9, A minor 11, A minor 13. We can have all those kinds of sounds naturally fall on the 2 chord, the 3 chord, and the 6 chord. Now, interestingly enough, with each of these 3 that I mentioned, we know from previous lessons that we sometimes borrow in chords from the minor key, and we can end up having a flat 2 in this. Sometimes we end up with a flat 2. The flat 2 is played usually as a dominant 7th if we're going to throw anything on it. So it's going to be that dominant 7th sound, that major chord with that flatted 7th, and we can have this flat 2 if it's not just played as a major triad. So sometimes we'll hear it played as a major triad, but we get the flat 2. If it's a dominant 7th chord, if we're stacking higher, we can have that 9th, the 7 sharp 11, or the 13th. So for D flat, then we could have just a D flat major, but D flat 7. We could also have D flat 9, D flat 9. We could have D flat 7 sharp 11. Didn't quite get that sounding good. And the D flat 13. Now with all these chords that I'm demonstrating here, we're not going through specific voicings for them on these Theory Thursdays, at least not right now, because coming out in the jazz series that is airing each week, I'm going over lots of different types of voicings that are how to play these types of things a lot. So if you need help with playing voicings for these 7th chords, these 9th chords, these 11th chords, check out those. There's also quick answer videos that go through specific voicings as well. So right now, that's where you can learn about specific voicings. At some point, it's likely that on these Theory Thursdays, I'll get into voicings, but because I'm covering those things so much right now in the jazz course, and there's quick answer videos that go over them, I'm not going to cover them on the Theory Thursdays at this point. But if you want help with voicings, that's where you can find help. So the flat 2 then functions as that dominant 7th. It's a dominant 7th functioning type of chord. So if we look over here onto the 3 with that flatted 3, this one's actually going to be major 7th. So it's going to fit the same types of things as our 1 and 4 chords naturally do. So we could have that 3, which in this case would be an E flat chord. In this key, we'd be looking at doing E flat 6, E flat 6, 9, E flat major 7, E flat major 9, E flat major 7 sharp 11, or E flat major 13. Put the 9th in there too, but that's what we're going to have, that sort of sound coming in if we're using that flat 3 most of the time. Same thing with the flat 6. So with the flat 6, we have A flat, so it's going to be the same kind of thing. We're going to have A flat 6, A flat 6, 9, A flat major 7, A flat major 9, A flat major 7 sharp 11, A flat major 13. We're going to have those sounds there. So that's how that works. Now our 5 chord is naturally a dominant chord, that major chord with a flatted 7th. And a lot of times in pop, rock, folk, all those, we will use this chord with that flatted 7th pretty commonly. We use that one there. But we can also have colors on top of it, the 9th, the 11th, the 13th. So in this key, we're talking about G major, G7 is our dominant chord. We could have that G with the 9, we could have the sharp 11, or the 13th. Those ones naturally happen there. Our diminished 7th over on the far right, our 7 diminished 7th, this is just a triad. When we do this in a major key, we naturally end up with this half diminished 7th. Rarely do we see in, say, jazz or pop or folk or those types of things the actual half diminished used, though it does happen in classical music. So in this case I just played an A, but it's really B half diminished. So our B full diminished triad, we get that half diminished, or minor 7 flat 5, meaning that we've got the root, the minor third, the flatted fifth, which is a diminished fifth, and then the minor 7th, or the flatted 7th. So that's what naturally falls there, and we could have that in a key. And with those, we know from previous lessons that it could have the 9th on top of that, it could have the flat 9, and that's usually all the further that it goes. You could have other colors, but it doesn't usually happen because of the conflict between that flatted 5 and those colors. So if you had a sharp 11, it's going to be the same as the flatted 5. If you have a natural 11, it's going to conflict some with that flatted 5, and you have to decide if you want that tension. But the 9th sounds nice with those voicings. The 13th would likewise sort of have an interesting play between that flatted 5 and that 13. Okay, so borrowed from the minor key, though, it's common to use a fully diminished 7th chord, and that's actually more oftenly used. So we get that diminished sound, where we then have that fully diminished 7th, which is the same sounding pitch as the 6th. So that one happens actually quite a lot in place of the half diminished, if we're bringing it into pop, rock, folk, jazz, and those types of settings. We can also have the flat 7 that we come up with, and this one functions as a dominant 7th chord. So in this key, that'd be B flat. We can have the B flat triad, but we can also have B flat 7, or we can have B flat 9, or we can have B flat 7 sharp 11, or B flat 13. Those colors can come in there as well. So that's the common types of sounds, and those are places that we tend to go. Now, we've learned about other types of chords, like the add 9 chord. Technically, and this happens more in pop than, say, jazz or classical or those types of settings, but pop, rock, folk, those kinds of sounds, sometimes we'll do the add 9 chords. We can take any major or minor chord and just plain old add the 9th to it. So with any of these voicings, C could instead be C add 9, if I do it. D minor could instead be D minor add 9 if you have the fingers for it. E minor could be E minor add 9. F could be F9. G could be G9. A minor could be A minor add 9. And then we don't really do that with diminished chords. So you could have an add 9. The sus4, sus2 sounds, where we replace the 3rd with the 4 or the 2. These could be used in place of any of the major or minor chords. We don't really replace diminished chords with those, but any of the major or minor chords we could go through and have, instead of C major, it could become C suspended, or C sus2, C sus4, C sus2. You could also have the sus4 with the added 9th to it, so that kind of thing. We could do that for any of the major or minor. It could happen. The place where it happens probably the most is sort of in a dominant functioning setting. So over the 5 chord, for example, or secondary dominance. We've learned about secondary dominance in a previous lesson, but those kind of dominant functioning settings, those are the places where we see this kind of thing the most. So pretty cool. Now with that, the suspensions being mentioned, we've learned in previous lessons that we could have a suspended 4th with any major 7th, minor 7th, or 6th. That means any of these options could have the suspended 4th used in place of the 3rd, which would change them up. So pretty cool. These are where the sounds naturally happen. Now, alterations of the 5th. Sometimes we'll see a sharp 5 or a flat 5. We know that the flat 5 is the same pitch as the sharp 11, and the sharp 5 is the same pitch as the flat 13. So interchangeably for us, we can have those sounds come in. Sometimes you'll see that alteration happen even on a 1 chord, a 2 chord, a 3 chord, a 4 chord, a 5 chord, or a 6 chord. So we can sometimes run into having that sharp 5 or that flat 5 thrown in, or the interchangeable place of that sharp 5 being also the same pitch as the flat 13, or the sharp 11 being the same pitch as the flat 5. So those colors sometimes do come in a major key. They're far more often seen in a minor key, but sometimes we see them in a major key. So, and especially with that dominant chord in a major key, we'll get those sometimes, like the flat 9 sound or something. Sometimes we want some of that extra tension. So those alterations are possible there that we've talked about previously. If you just jumped in on this lesson, you're going to want to look at those lessons that go through the different types of chords and also the different types of chord progressions. Now, we've looked at chord progressions that use sort of just the basic chords. After going through this, we will look at chord progressions that are more specific to the jazz style just a little bit to kind of get inside of those kinds of sounds. But here is a nice overview of what we have happening here with the chords in a key. In the next lesson, we're going to look at the chords in a minor key and see how those ones work. So keep having fun. Of course, we got the jazz lessons on Mondays and Wednesdays. On Saturdays, we've got lessons coming out about how to improvise in the rock, pop, and blues styles, which is super fun. On Tuesdays, we've got Technique Tuesdays. Those are the new lessons coming out every week. And then, of course, these ones are on Theory Thursdays. And there are hundreds, over 900 lessons already on the channel pertaining to lots of different types of playing. So keep having fun. Keep at it. Take care, and we'll see you again. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my guitar method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at kristenbromley.com. Take care.